In the 36 years that I've been a rabbi, I cannot recall a time when we had such a busy and energetic progressive rabbinate. Busy not only with congregational life, but also on much wider issues. We have right now a constant stream of our liberal and reform rabbis visiting Israel. There was one group last week, another group this week, going with Yachad the last few days. They've been showing solidarity with our colleagues there, rejoicing with those who have been freed, mourning with those in grief, sympathizing with how tough it is to be an Israeli right now, worn out by the constant roller coaster of emotions and the fear of further conflict. But while all this is going on in Israel, we do not forget Ukraine. Our rabbis, particularly the rabbis of this community and the congregants of this community, have done so much to support Ukraine since the time that Julia Grushenko came here as a student rabbi and then went off to serve in Odessa. And then we had 2022, when she and Rabbi Tanya Sachnovich had to be rescued when Russia invaded. Igor Zinkov and so many others have worked tirelessly to get people out, to get supplies into Ukraine. Many of us have had Ukrainians staying with us in our homes. And one thing all of us who've met people from Ukraine will be aware, they have such an awareness of the Jewish history of that country, and it really does mean something to them. And as events become very difficult at the moment, I think I would like to say to President Putin the words that a former prime minister of this country once said to another dictator in Europe: "You do your worst, and we will do our best." But closer to home, here in the UK, we've been busy with some good news. We've had the unexpected but welcome announcement of a new accord between Muslim and Jewish leaders, followed by a very positive statement a few days ago from the United Synagogue Chief Rabbi Ephraim Mervis, encouraging everyone to get involved at a local level. And I've begun some work myself on how this project could be enhanced by a historical and theological underpinning, emphasizing the shared history of Judaism and Islam. And you will remember I co-taught a course here on that subject with scholar of Islam, Harith Ramli. And finally, as you've been hearing from Rabbi Igor and Rabbi Alex recently, we as a group of rabbis have started to work on a theology for our new progressive movement. Our liberal values are as important as ever, and perhaps even more so as we seem to be moving into an illiberal age. I've been part of a small group discussion where we began by acknowledging that there are many different theologies and spiritualities held within the progressive Jewish community, based around a core value of ethical monotheism, a belief in one God sustained and supported by our Jewish ethics. Our discussions have acknowledged the impossibility of imposing a single collective theology on the future progressive Jewish community, but we've agreed that theology will remain an essential part of how we define the guiding principles of the new movement. And that theology must not be something abstract, but something which enables a progressive Jewish way of life. And most importantly, one ambition of our theology is to identify a common core of spirituality and ethics that we can cohere around. Now, if all that sounds quite interesting but rather vague on the specifics, well, it is. But I think the specifics are going to be very practical ones. I think we're moving towards what has been called practical theology. Rabbi Larry Hoffman has put it like this: our aim should be to transfer synagogues into spiritual and moral centers for the 21st century, with ongoing dialogue on the future of the Jewish community in general and the evolving nature of synagogues in particular. Now, Larry Hoffman is exceptionally good at doing that himself, and the last time I heard him in person was at this very building talking about the Haggadah. And one way he builds his own theology is by inspirational words of Torah. So although I do not have a fraction of his brilliance, here are my words of Torah about building a progressive Jewish theology. When the people of Israel came out of Egypt, they were collectively traumatized. They came very close to death and escaped only by a miracle. They were led to Sinai, where they accepted a really tough covenant because, as some of the Midrashim have it, there was nothing else on offer. So when Moses disappeared up the mountain again and did not return, they built a golden calf and held a festival in its honor. Bizarrely, I had just been writing those words in this sermon when I stopped for a moment to see what was on the news, and I saw a video on President Trump's social media platform, Truth, showing his imagined future for Gaza, and in it is an imagined monumental golden statue of Trump himself. Can you believe it? The golden calf has been trumped. In the Torah, and still today, our God does not require statues. But God does require buildings, just as Gaza requires homes. The Bnei Yisrael were not asked to build a calf or a monumental statue of Moses, but to build a sanctuary, a place where God could be imagined with no images to dwell. And so the Torah's answer to near catastrophe, to trauma, is terumah, contributions. When you are homeless, you need to build homes. When you're spiritually adrift, God needs a home inside our hearts, and a physical building too. That portable tent that you've just heard about, we began the description this morning, but it's going to go on for several weeks. It was the ancestor of every synagogue, church, and mosque in the entire world, a place where God was to be acknowledged, worshipped, thanked, beseeched, and praised. That Torah description is beautifully and quite ridiculously long, detailing the type and colors of the cloths, the measurements of the items, the materials required, the kind of craftspeople needed, and at the end, of course, there are accounts giving the exact cost. But why so much that we need a whole month of readings about it? For the Dor HaMidbar, the generation of the desert, as we call them, the revelation at Sinai was not enough. The vision of the new covenantal religion was great, but it didn't satisfy on its own. They needed a tangible symbol of God's presence to sustain them. For them, it was their tabernacle. For us, it is our synagogues. But even this is not enough. The physical building is just the outside. Building a new movement is from the inside, from our feelings, our hearts, our minds. Like that sanctuary, our new movement requires plans and people with specific skills, diverse people, like the diverse colors in our reading. Our new movement will both sustain our visions and shed light upon us like the menorah of old. When we come into this synagogue or any synagogue, we can recognize the symbols here, and in them the great psychological power of that tabernacle of old. When the ark doors are opened, we imagine ourselves standing, as it were, before God's presence. Here we take shelter under God's wings. Here we can even hide in shame at difficult and penitential times. For this is the storehouse of our deepest thoughts and most disturbing feelings. And we bring too an additional element in our inclusivity and openness, which so often has been absent from modern Jewish history. Within a conceptual framework that advocates for social and economic justice for all. The new movement, if it works, will bring light into our lives. What was new about that first menorah was that it joined lamps, 7 of them, and a stand into a single object set on a single base. The Tavnit, the blueprint for our movement, will bring the plans and ideas we contribute and set them on a single foundation, which we are going to call progressive Judaism. That term is 99 years old. In 1926, Lily Montagu sent out invitations to the first conference of what was to be the World Union of Progressive Judaism, and it took place here at the Liberal Jewish Synagogue, and next year will be the centenary. The conference was opened by founder of the synagogue, Claude Montefiore, and the Shabbat morning sermon was given by Rabbi Israel Matuk. There were 100 delegates present, and they decided to set up a permanent organization, the World Union, and chose the word progressive as the umbrella term for the various movements. Now, I'm going to be a little bold for the LJS and say that I think progressive is actually a messianic word. Now, I know that liberal Judaism has abandoned belief in a personal Messiah, but the notion of the time of the Messiah, that is to say, a just and peaceful world, is still an aim to strive for. As the prayer we're about to say, or I don't think we're about to say it this week, but we often say towards the end of the service, help us to perfect the world by bringing it under your unchallenged rule. And every step along that path is a little messianic progress. But just one further thought. In Hebrew, progressive is mitkadem, from the root kuf dalit mam, the same root as in the summer camp, kadima. Kedem, kuf dalit mem, means the east, or in front. But it can also denote the past. As you will have heard if you've been listening closely, as those ark doors were closed, Chadesh Yameinu Kekedem, renew our days as they were before. So progress means acknowledging the past, preserving the memories of the good times. Rabbi Howard Cooper once said that a Jew is someone who stands with one foot in the here and now and one foot in eternity. We envision our future through our memories of the past, which can help us overcome our fears and lessen our doubts. May we too bring our skills, our contributions, our piquant, spicy ideas, and our sparkling, precious thoughts, and build our new movement together. And may this be God's will. Shabbat Shalom.